I'm Amanda Schumacher. I'm with Borton Lawson, a business development leader here in our Bethlehem office. I'll be your moderator today. And also we have Ralph Eberhardt here from Michael Baker International. He's going to be our Q&A facilitator. He'll come on at the end. But I'm going to just do some general housekeeping here, and then I will introduce our speakers. We actually have 2 presentations today in the same time slot. So you will hear from 2 different presenters, well, 3 actually, there's 2 in the second one, and they'll follow subsequently after each other. So some great knowledge to be shared today. I'm really excited to hear about both of these presentations. Let me just get to our general housekeeping items. You'll see that there's a chat feature on to the right of your screen. Ralph has been gracious enough to put in some links already there for you. We have a link to the lobby, and I'm trying to see which one that would be. I don't know what the safe links is. That might be the lobby link. I'll double check that that's the right link, but there should be a link back to the lobby to make sure that you can have access to get back if you need to. If you close out of the session, it will take you out of the whole conference. So use that link, please, if you need to either navigate to another track or just get back to networking. There's also a link that Ralph posted to our help desk. So if you are having any issues whatsoever within the session, please use that help desk email, 2021helpdesk@ashe.pro. And there's also a link to a PDH form. This session does qualify for PDHs. It is a virtual form, very easy to fill out. We encourage you to do it through the session just because it's easier that way. There's only one form for both sessions, so you even get it easier. And the PDH link actually will be tagged to the recording of this presentation that we are currently doing. It will be uploaded to our ASHE National YouTube page. So all you have to do is search for ASHE National. And the PDH form will be available 2 weeks after the conference ends, and you'll receive your PDH form as soon as possible after that. So getting to Ralph, were you gonna confirm that that was the right link? Sorry, I saw you pop on there.
Yep, the 4th link there is the lobby link, Amanda.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay.
The first one's a help desk. The second one is the YouTube channel.
Okay.
People can go back and see the recorded session.
That's a long URL.
Yeah, I don't know why. I have no idea.
Okay.
And the third one is the PDH form, and the 4th one is the lobby link.
Great. Perfect. Thanks for confirming, Ralph. Okay, everyone, getting on with it here to our main event. Chris is on the stage here with us. Let me just get to bios here. Okay, so first presentation is going to be to make sure that you are in the right track. I should have started with that. You are in track 1, planning and design. We have 2 presentations today. The first is going to be closing a critical gap in the Schuylkill River Trail using creative engineering solutions to transform a highway bridge into a multimodal bridge. Our speaker is Chris Stanford, also of Michael Baker International in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and he is a professional civil engineer, a certified project management professional, and a certified planner with over 25 years of experience. So very diverse, and looking forward to your perspective on this project, Chris. He's managed a wide variety of projects, construction value of up to $32 million through the entire planning, design, and construction process. He's also local in terms of training here. He's got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Lafayette College in Easton, PA, my hometown, and a master's degree in civil engineering from Villanova University. He also has 20 years of specialized experience in parks, shared use path, rails to trails, safe routes to school, greenway planning, design, and construction projects. And in 2020, Chris was recognized with the Association of Pedestrian Bicycle Professionals, the Delaware Valley chapter, that's down in the Philadelphia area, first ever Professional of the Year award for his tireless effort to advance bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Welcome, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for those kind words.
Yes, the second speaker I'm going to introduce, second speakers and presentation is going to be about complete streets, redefining Greensboro's Gateway. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking this morning. Both of our speakers are going to be from Gannett Fleming, and one is from the Raleigh, North Carolina area. That's Adam Archual, and he is a senior environmental planner in Gannett Fleming's Raleigh office with a background in cultural resource management and historic preservation. He's been working in the transportation industry for 9 years as a cultural resource subject matter expert and as a lead environmental planner responsible for NEPA and state equivalent compliance for surface transportation projects. He's also routinely involved in the early planning for infrastructure projects and the engagement of public and stakeholders in the development of transportation projects. Our second speaker for that presentation is Carrie Long, and she is with the Philadelphia office of Gannett Fleming. She's senior transportation planner there and within their advanced mobility group. And she works on projects to prepare for the integration of transformative, connected, and automated mobility. And previously, she served as the director of the Center for Safe Mobility, where she developed new ways of understanding mobility, wayfinding, and safety to inform the policies that shape and define the streets and transportation systems. So some great synergy there between our presentations. I'll now hand it over to Chris to take it away. Chris, let's just make sure I can see your screen before I head off here.
All right. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see here, window. Can you see that, Amanda?
I can see the Remo screen.
You can't see PowerPoint.
Cannot see the PowerPoint.
Cannot see the PowerPoint. This again.
Okay, I can see the window. You just have to put it into presentation mode. And just a reminder, as Chris is doing that, please post your questions for Chris or Adam and Carrie into the Q&A box on the right-hand side, and Ralph will then get those at the end. And if you want to hit the hide window down there at the bottom, Chris, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you all for coming today to hear about the SR-29 bridge retrofit project for the Schuylkill River Trail. This is a trail project, a retrofit project for the Schuylkill River Trail, which is a shared use path extending for 128 miles from Frackville to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Carries over 1 million users every year along various sections of the SRT. There was a long-standing gap, about 1,000 feet long, between Phoenixville and Montclair, Pennsylvania. After some feasibility study work that we did with Phoenixville, it was determined that the best route to close this gap was to do a modification of the roadway bridge over the Schuylkill River along State Route 29, which carries over 16,000 cars every day. Again, with the goal to close this gap. I mean, the gap has been a standing issue for several decades along the Schuylkill River Trail. So today I'm going to talk about two of the main challenges that we had with the project. The first was modifying this existing roadway bridge, which was over 500 feet long, a relatively narrow width over the Schuylkill River to accommodate the trail, while also accommodating, the roadway needs and PennDOT safety requirements. Second challenge that we'll talk about is transforming this sort of narrow, dark, unsafe area under a Norfolk Southern Railroad bridge to accommodate the trail and to overcome an issue with a 3-foot drop off from the trail area, the sidewalk area, down to the adjacent roadway. We also had a challenge of not touching the NS bridge. St. Phoenixville Borough, who is the client and sponsor of this project, had, I'll just say, several negative experiences with NS that cost them a lot of money, just put it bluntly. So they were very concerned about getting involved with Norfolk Southern. So they basically gave us the marching orders of not touching the bridge. So another challenge there. So first, let's just talk about the existing bridge cross section. As you can see in the upper right here, the curb-to-curb width was about 35 feet, had 2 travel lanes, which varied from 11.5 to 12.5 feet. There was a 1-foot shoulder on one side and a 5-foot shoulder on the other side, and an existing 5-foot raised sidewalk. After a lot of conversation and alternatives back and forth with PennDOT's bridge group and the roadway safety group, we came up with the bottom cross section that everyone could live with. We changed the travel lanes down to 11 foot. We incorporated 1-foot shoulders on each side, and that left us with 9 foot 3 inches available for a shared use path, meeting the 8-foot minimum requirements typical for shared use paths, but not quite meeting the 10-foot recommended widths. Was a compromise solution there. We installed a single-face concrete barrier that was precast between the roadway and the trail, and incorporated proposed railing system on top of the barrier as well as on the outside parapet to accommodate the safety requirements for 54 inches that PennDOT has for bicycles on their roadways and bridges. The last element that was incorporated was LED lighting that was incorporated approximately every 25 feet along the existing parapet to allow for 24/7 use of the trail. So here's a photo of the existing bridge. You can see relatively narrow. Once cars are shown here with this 5-foot shoulder and the sidewalk as well. This was a rendering that we developed during the feasibility study stage to give folks an understanding of what the bridge could look like. So during construction, obviously we had a lot of challenges. First, we actually had to remove the existing sidewalk to basically take some loading off the bridge to compensate for the new barrier that was going to be added to the bridge. We used a hydro demolition process to remove that existing sidewalk, but then we were left with a very uneven surface, as you can see in this photo. So we included a latex modified overlay on the whole trail area to create a safe and smooth surface for the trail. We had to accommodate, the cross slopes that were out there and the existing drainage that was located along the existing sidewalk curb line. So we actually inverted the cross section of the trail, basically a 2% grade to basically bring the drainage back to where it was in the existing condition. And we replaced the scuppers with ADA compliant grates, as you see a photo on the bottom right there of what those grates would look like to accommodate the trail users. And as I mentioned, we used a structure-mounted prefabricated single-face barrier. You can see a photo here of that being installed. We used PennDOT's BC 719 detailing to attach the barrier through the deck using an anchor system, as you can see on the bottom left there in that detail. We actually drilled a hole through the deck, installed a large bolt with an anchor and nut system on the bottom. And we also increased the spacing of those bolts to improve the strength and resilience of the system over time. We used a temporary steel barrier system for traffic control, as you can see on the photo, that would protect the workers during construction. So traffic control was a challenge with this very narrow bridge. We had some pretty constrained situation here as far as our restrictions. No lane closures during the rush hours. And we also had to maintain a 5-foot pedestrian path at all times across the bridge, which was a challenge with the narrow width. The contractor was allowed to take a lane off peak from 9 to 3 to allow for a 1-lane closure, and then use flagging to allow for alternating direction of traffic to cross the structure. Here's some cross sections of the details of the construction staging. As you can see, it was a pretty complicated system, providing for the 5-foot pedestrian path across the bridge at all times, but at the same time giving the contractor a safe work area as well. And here's a photo of the proposed to the finished product. As you can see, a new railing system on the right on top of the parapet, our new structure-mounted barrier on the left. I'll point out, make a note of the railing system that's sort of stopped short on this side. We'll talk about, you know, the reasoning for the railing system not extending across the entire width here in a second. And you can see a shot in the upper right here of the right of the bridge in the evening. You can see some of the lights in the parapet there as well. Another interesting element we incorporated to the project were these landmark signs. They're illuminated. They're ones located on each end of the bridge, really to establish that you've actually, you know, arrived at somewhere after riding, you know, certain sections of the trail. Really to give some placemaking elements to the project, and they kind of reflect the history, the steelmaking history of Phoenixville, with the style of those landmark signs. The second major challenge, as I mentioned, was the Norfolk Southern Underpass. As you can see on this photo, there was quite a drop off from the sidewalk to the existing roadway, but there was no protection within the bridge area itself. This fencing stopped on either side of the bridge, so that was a concern. We wanted to widen and reconstruct the sidewalk as much as possible to accommodate the trail, and to make this area a little more inviting. We incorporated wall wash uplighting in the sidewalk underneath the bridge to you know, basically light up that area and make it safer and more inviting for the trail users. And then we replaced this old railing system with a new chain link fence as well. So again, here's a shot from the other direction of the existing conditions. And this was a rendering that we developed during the feasibility study to kind of give folks an idea of what this would look like in once it was done. We had proposed initially this bollard and chain system, but late in the game, PennDOT had some concerns about that meeting their safety requirements, and that was switched out for a typical chain link fence. So here's a photo during construction. You can see the sidewalk has all been removed. And you can see the lighting elements that have been installed. Those are the fixtures that will be throwing light up on the abutment wall and lighting up this area. And on the right side, you can see the posts for the new safety fencing that's going to be installed. And here's a couple photos of the finished project area. You can see this fencing that was installed. We did a little bit of sidewalk widening to help meet the 8-foot requirement for the trail. And other improvements that have been incorporated. And here's a couple photos of the lighting elements that were incorporated into the project. You can see upper right was the existing. Below that, you can see some of the lighting elements throwing some light up on the walls. And in this main photo, you can see how that those lights really illuminated the bridge area, and was a kind of a neat solution to provide lighting without really touching the bridge, which was a concern of NS and Phoenixville. So some takeaways that we had to sort of wrap this up. Accommodating the pedestrians really was a challenge in this narrow bridge. As you can see on this photo in the upper right, contractor didn't always follow the plan as exactly it was as designed. They had some large vehicles like here, construction equipment that basically occupied the entire trail, that really forced pedestrians to basically walk out in the work area. Contractor was good about, you know, getting a flagger out there to help people get around the specific work areas, but that proved to be a challenge during the actual construction. As I mentioned before, we actually had to stop the railing system short on one end of the bridge because there was a driveway on one end of the bridge, and the actual railing system constrained the sight distance for vehicles pulling out adjacent to the bridge. So working with the district, we actually eliminated the railing on certain portions of the bridge. We still maintained the 32-inch barrier system that separated the trail from the roadway, but we actually stopped the railing short to accommodate the sight distance. So sort of just a lesson learned and a warning to folks: if you have any driveways and you're trying to incorporate these railing systems, they really can constrain the sight distance. Again, we mentioned the NS Railroad Bridge. Again, we thought initially, and all the folks that we talked to at PennDOT and along the way did not think that we actually had to go through the Public Utility Commission process, because we really were not changing the railroad crossing itself. It was a grade separated crossing with the sidewalk going underneath the railroad. However, we got to 11th hour and folks were concerned about us changing that, even though we were just reconstructing and adding the lighting and adding the fencing underneath the railing. So again, sort of a word to the wise to sort of start that PUC discussion and discussions with any of the PennDOT folks about the need for a PUC process for projects like this one. And also just recommend that lighting be installed in these types of projects, really to make the trails usable at all hours of day and night for people who are commuting, off hours for people, if you have the daylight savings time to deal with, we get in some dark hours in the evening, in the morning when people are commuting. So that's a recommendation that we're trying to incorporate into all our urban and suburban trails, is to include lighting to make them more functional for all day and night, all times to day and night. And at this point, I'll say thank you, and we'll turn it over to the next presentation.
Much, Chris. You can stop sharing your camera here, and we'll bring Adam and Carrie onto the stage. Looks like we're seeing the screen, but Carrie and Adam, we're not seeing you.
Right.
All right, looks like we've got both of you now. And then Chris, it's just same thing, just turn your camera button off there if you'd like. Perfect. All right, Carrie, it looks like you're muted. I'm not sure if that's okay. Perfect.
All right.
All right,
Great.
go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting project from Chris. Thank you. And we'll continue to touch on some of the themes he shared. That is making space for bike and pedestrian infrastructure in some constrained environments. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. I'm Adam Archual, environmental planner in Gannett Fleming's Raleigh office. Carrie and I are going to take a look at Complete Streets policy and how this philosophy was applied in a recent feasibility study Gannett Fleming completed with the City of Greensboro Department of Transportation. And I'm going to let Carrie pick up from here for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us. My name is Carrie Long. I'm a senior transportation planner in the Philadelphia office, and I focus on safety for vulnerable road users. So I am so thrilled to speak to this project and this important concept. Before we begin, I encourage you to share your opinions with us during the presentation. We will host 3 open polls, and you can respond in 3 ways. The first, in the chat window, I'll share a link for each poll. So just click on that link. It'll open a new browser window and submit your answer. You can also just navigate to menti.com and enter the poll code. It'll be on the top of the screen. It's 31326969. And the third option is that you can also do this on your phone. So just if you take your smartphone and go to menti.com, you can vote straight from your device. So again, we will prompt you with the codes for each poll, but are excited to hear your feedback. So today, next slide, thank you. Today we'll kick off our presentation with a high-level introduction to what a complete street is, what they intend to accomplish, and some of the policy and guidelines available to transportation planners and engineers. We'll then drill down to a case study in Greensboro, where Gannett Fleming teamed with the City of Greensboro, North Carolina, to develop a feasibility study for streetscape enhancement on Westgate City Boulevard. We'll review the local complete street policy adopted in 2015 and see how these concepts influence the planning for multimodal facilities along a major urban corridor in transition. And then we'll wrap up with a few takeaways from the study and lessons learned. Before we dive in, though, we actually are going to kick off with our first of 3 polls. So please use the option of your choosing. The link is about to be dropped in the chat. And then yeah, well, we will see your feedback shortly. Hold on one moment. Okay. There we go. Okay. And Oh my goodness, you already have answers rolling in. I am not even sharing them yet, but I'm getting a sneak preview, so. Okay. I'm actually going to hide results briefly because I don't want a spoiler, and we will give 30 seconds. Though I guess that timer was a minute, so count to 30. All right, and after 15, I will break the silence and show us where we're at. Oh boy. Okay, multimodal, of course, that's great. Complete, that's a good word for sure. That's definitely what these are. Inclusive and accommodating. Okay, so you all could give our presentation. You seem to be right on the money here. Integrated connectivity. This is wonderful. All right. Well, they're still rolling in. I really appreciate these answers coming in. This is teeing me up very nicely for our next slide. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, pass it back to Adam. But there you go. If you can just see there, I think this is a great representation of what complete streets are, with accessible, safe, accommodating, and multimodal, taking those big spots on our word cloud. So what are complete streets? Well, you all seem to be very well versed in it, which is wonderful. But let's take a step back for everyone. Complete streets are streets that ensure the entire right-of-way is planned, designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to provide and encourage safe access for all users. Doing so places an emphasis on enabling active mobility options in transit, supporting the inclusion of all ages and abilities, and integrating the unique needs and goals of the community. While we often think of complete streets as a design intervention, it's really a paradigm for planning multimodal streets that are safe and efficient for everyone, whether you are biking or walking, driving, or riding transit. And we achieve this shift through policies and guidance that encourage engineers and planners to consider and incorporate all modes needs into local projects, and placing community engagement and equity at the core of this process. It's important to note that while complete streets hinge on reallocating space to support multimodal options, it's really an efficiency benefit. By giving people choices and facilitating options with reduced footprint space or greater carrying capacity, we actually can both preserve existing throughput, and efficiency tends to improve. And so before we dive into our case study, I thought it might be useful to unravel some of the guidance and standards that govern complete street initiatives. At the top of this hierarchy, we have the federal or national guidance, your MUTCD, the Green Book, and above all, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which mandates that all transportation infrastructure is compliant with accessibility requirements, Title II and III. And state and local agencies are empowered to develop guidance that exceeds these regulations, but it must meet these standards. So across the country, DOTs and over 286 cities have done just that, creating guidance on complete streets that builds off the state and federal rules. However, these complete street guidance documents are difficult to enforce, as language encourages consideration rather than a requirement. And below guidance, we have policies. This is the big fish here in complete streets work. These establish the goals and methods, or how you might approach street design. They can be parameters for success, priorities, or processes for validating what is needed against what is possible given the preferred location or context. Here in Philadelphia, the city requires that the redesign of the right-of-way, that you complete a complete streets design checklist before engaging to make sure you have considered the full context. Finally, plans refers to the method and process for attaining the safety, mobility, and other community goals we've defined. Plans are based on both the policies and guidance that inform their possibilities, and analyses like Adam took on for this project to determine best cases and context-appropriate designs. The graphic at right just shows how these different documents impacted our Greensboro case study. The state, North Carolina, adopted a complete streets policy in 2009, design guidelines in 2012, which were recently updated, and in 2015, Greensboro adopted their own policy. Together, these policies equipped practitioners with the tools and knowledge to integrate and advance complete streets principles. So Adam will now take you through a discussion of Gannett Fleming's work applying these plans to a complete street design project along a boulevard in Greensboro.
Yeah, thank you. And so, as Carrie mentioned, the Greensboro urban area MPO adopted their complete street policy in 2015. The vision statement sums up the policy objective, and that is to develop and maintain a safe, efficient, and environmentally compatible transportation system that provides convenient choices for accessing destinations throughout the Greensboro metropolitan area and the Triad, including well-integrated, connected public transportation, pedestrian, and bicycle networks. Success measures include increased non-motorized trips, increased transit usage, supporting desirable land use patterns, including pedestrian and transit-oriented development, improvements to public health, and reduction in harmful air pollutant emissions. More broadly, benefits are expected to improve quality of life, support increased property values, and enhance the economy and the potential for future economic growth. The Greensboro policy applies to projects with direct MPO involvement and locally funded projects, and will be applied to street construction, retrofit, and reconstruction projects. There are exceptions made for freeways and controlled access facilities, and excessive costs based on expected need or possible use are also considered for exceptions, as are consideration for surrounding land use. So the project we'll be looking at today. We'll go through several slides here. I want to point out in the top right corner, you can find additional information about this study by capturing that QR code with your smartphone camera and reading the November 2020 ITE Journal article, Redefining Greensboro's Gateway. Westgate City Boulevard is classified as a principal arterial and is located approximately 1 mile south of downtown Greensboro. Westgate City serves as a major east-west thoroughfare and provides a continuous connection to I-40 east of downtown and west of downtown. This feasibility study examined a 1.8 mile segment of the corridor highlighted in red. Roadway characteristics included 5 to 6 lanes with curb and gutter and sidewalks at the back of the curb, all within 70 to 90 feet of right-of-way. The posted speed limit is 35 miles per hour. Land use consists of a mix of commercial, light industrial, and institutional uses, with major landmarks highlighted on the screen, including the Greensboro Coliseum at the west end of the project, UNC Greensboro in the middle, and the Union Square campus, a medical education facility at the east end. Also worth noting is the North Carolina Railroad corridor parallels the Gate City Boulevard to the north. This constrains north-south connectivity, and it limits north-south connections to a handful of grade separations. UNC Greensboro constructed a pedestrian tunnel in 2017, and this aligns with the Glenwood Avenue roadway. This created the access on which the university has and continues to expand. South of the corridor are historic neighborhoods laid out on a grid pattern. Some of the forces acting on this corridor are listed here on the screen. The local connections somewhat defined the user groups. The Greensboro Coliseum complex is a major destination at the west end of the project, hosts various sports and entertainment events, including the ACC men's basketball tournament 9 times over the past 20 years. So there's a local desire to enhance the corridor character through aesthetic enhancements, and create that gateway feel to leave a good impression with event attendees and visitors. As mentioned, UNC Greensboro is expanding and engaging the corridor around Glenwood Avenue, somewhat centrally within the study corridor. The university has already invested in significant development along the corridor since 2014 and was a strong stakeholder with a desire to influence aesthetics, placemaking, connectivity, and improved safety for students on foot and on bike. Then there are the connections to downtown Greensboro at the east end, where road facilities are more urban in character, including wider 8-foot sidewalks. And the downtown Greenway crosses our corridor and provides for opportunities to improve bike and ped connectivity between this corridor and downtown proper. So this corridor was developed somewhat single-mindedly as an automobile-centric roadway because it carries a lot of traffic. Upwards of 25,000 AADT. There are not other parallel routes that could realistically relieve traffic demand, so maintenance of vehicular capacity is crucial for the success of this project. The city is looking to rebalance the Westgate City Boulevard right-of-way and invest some thought and infrastructure to benefit that latent demand for safe and active transportation alternatives by improving bike and ped facilities and removing impediments like utility poles and a lot of driveways. Our feasibility is phase 2 in a corridor-wide enhancement plan. So here on the screen, we see some of the phase 1 enhancements on Westgate City Boulevard west of our project limits. These were completed in 2017. And you can start to see the vision coming to life. Wider sidewalks, brick pavers, pedestrian lighting, landscape medians, high visibility pedestrian crossings. And here's some representative photos from the study corridor that we're looking at. And I think this may look familiar to a lot of you. It strikes me as a fairly representative urban to suburban automobile-centric corridor. You can see the mixture of development, including historic brick buildings at the back of the sidewalk, and then new glass and steel UNC Greensboro buildings set back behind a vegetated buffer and wide 10-foot sidewalk. In the photograph at the right, we're looking down the sidewalk at Industries of the Blind, a project stakeholder that employs 155 visually impaired individuals that access the manufacturing center by foot, by bus, and car and van pooling. It's difficult to tell in the photograph. The curb lane here is about 17 feet wide. This is a remnant from on-street parking, which is no longer permitted. You'll also notice the utility poles in the sidewalk, which is an unhelpful impediment to pedestrians. This study evaluated and recommended the utility line be relocated to the north along the south side of the railroad right-of-way. It's considered a benefit to bike and ped movements as well as an aesthetic enhancement. So with that, we want to poll the group again, asking you that you place a mark on the photograph that we'll share with you, and tell us what you think would benefit from a complete street redesign. And Carrie just popped the link in the chat box.
There we go. All right. So this is exactly, we're looking at our corridor and would love, and please feel free to drop in the chat maybe why or what you see that informs your selection here. I'll just do a quick 30 seconds here to get this feedback on the screen. Let's see. Excellent. I see some of you noting something in the center of the right of way there. Yes, and your great answers are kind of hiding it now, but yes, that is a pedestrian walking right around there. And as Adam mentioned, this is a very wide street. I see Bob's comment here is all those lanes needed. not only all the lanes, but the sheer width is really impressive, the scale of it. So just to think about making that crossing distance, coming from the institutes, going to the school, it's quite a hike. All right, I'm going to close answers. It's been about 45 seconds. So great, you all picked up on some features like the utility pole up here. You've got the road widths and lanes, the sidewalk being a bit narrow. Of course, this is the big one, the person crossing mid-block. So excellent, thank you. I was at this polling, so maybe I didn't need to explain it so much. Awesome.
Well, yeah, and you picked out a lot of good stuff there. And so this is just a schematic, typical section of the existing conditions. And the most striking thing here is the amount of roadway pavement. It's 64 feet at minimum between curb faces, and with most sections, it's wider than this. So as land uses evolve and development continues, certain nodes, particularly at the university in this case, are attracting higher rates of bike and ped traffic. At the same time, the university is attracting vehicular trips. So while the university has been a willing participant in implementing the city's vision for the corridor, that's by in new developments, they're moving curb cuts from Westgate City Boulevard to the side streets and setting back buildings so that they can insert the vegetated buffers behind the curb and wider sidewalks. The resulting condition is somewhat disjointed today, and it doesn't provide for equitable access along the east-west axis. Further, these developments don't address the sheer width of the roadway, which remains a psychological and physical barrier for north-south bike and ped movements. So we're going to hop into another poll here. I'm going to give you 4 considerations to rank in planning for this project. The 4 categories here are prioritizing active modes. Actually, I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Engaging and listening to the community, prioritizing and encouraging active modes, improving the corridor through placemaking or safer interactions between modes.
I will go ahead and show results. Interesting. This is pretty fun to watch. It feels a little bit like a race, but there's no wrong answer. These are all really important goals. So, and they're not mutually exclusive. A lot of these are. It's a little Venn diagram of all the overlap and such. But I'm encouraged to see the safer interactions. Ranking highly, I think that's so fundamental to this policy, and certainly helps when you listen to the community, of course. Excellent. Well, we are coming up on a minute, so get your speak now or forever hold your peace on your complete street priorities. Thank you again for sharing your feedback with us. This is really great and helpful. All right, and I will toss it back to Adam.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah. And I was glad to see the listening to the community came up second place there. It's it's an important step in planning the vision for a community. Communication was critical for the Greensboro feasibility study's success. That's within the city itself and externally. Early on, we conducted a bike, ped, origin, and destination field survey, the responses to which were useful in supporting the need for a mid-block crossing to access the UNCG Wellness Center. The project team met with a transit and bicycle user interest group and Industries for the Blind to understand the specific needs or desires of these groups. Multiple touch points with UNC Greensboro administrative staff provided the project team the opportunity to stay informed as they updated their master plan and peek into the future a little bit as new developments and initiatives arise. This is a helpful reminder that familiarity with plans is often not enough. These plans are living, dynamic documents, and it is always a good idea to talk to your major stakeholders about their vision. The project team also hosted a booth at the Grove Street People's Market in the historic African American Glenwood neighborhood south of the corridor. These diverse user groups helped re-emphasize and reprioritize this study's critical success factors and reinforce this corridor's importance in the daily lives of all these communities. These collective efforts resulted in concrete interim improvements and design recommendations moving forward. And then here is the future proposed typical. First, you'll see reducing the roadway width curb to curb. This immediately benefits bike and ped crossing by reducing that distance. Medians would likely be used strategically along the corridor and turn movements channelized. We did not remove any travel lanes. There's still 4 travel lanes. Lighting and landscaping will contribute to a more welcoming street environment for those users not inside vehicles, and a 10-foot side path is proposed along the north side and a variable 6 to 8 foot sidewalk along the south side. And this is all to minimize the need for additional right-of-way. Very minimal new right-of-way was required for this design.
Awesome. Great. And so to sum up all the work here, we've summed it as 2 themes: activating and improving the gateway. The first is that this project endeavored a coordinated approach, maintaining capacity while improving safety, efficiency, and accessibility for all modes, strengthening connections to nearby destinations. This includes physical safety interventions such as upgraded crossing, lane adjustments, transit stop amenities, and improved lighting. Through community engagement, Adam's team identified the areas of interest in the community and the most valued enhancements. For example, working with the Institute of the Blind to evaluate features for individuals living with visual impairments so the boulevard can reflect and better serve the needs of its community. And there's a virtual cycle with these improvements, and that pedestrian facilities that are consistently available, reliable, and easy to navigate strengthen the perception of safety in the corridor and encourage folks to use them. This psychological impact can be enhanced by incorporating design elements and streetscaping, such as green features and landscaping, to make the space more attractive. Next slide, please. Improving the streetscape and making an attractive area is an important priority for number 2, establishing or improving the corridor identity. This was a major goal for the community stakeholders and the university because this street is, as Adam mentioned, a real gateway to the area and a central place with schools, medical centers, and residential neighborhoods. We want this corridor to capitalize on its role as a connector to these assets by using design cues such as intersection treatments, human scale lighting, and wayfinding that orients travelers to where they are, where the local amenities are, and the ease of making connections between them. These visual cues help distinguish the street from others and define the street as a gateway to the area, communicating the character of the community and establishing a welcoming feeling for the street. In short, this is a major corridor to go through, and while we want to support that throughput, we also want it to be welcoming and attractive for all users. So throughout this project, we had 3 major themes. Next slide. Oh, awesome. They are, first, to rebalance local needs. This is a auto-centric design, despite being a fairly walkable university neighborhood with many nearby destinations. The area had also experienced recent developments, and this plan provided a chance to recalibrate the gateway to these trends and adapt to future plans for the area. Working with the community and stakeholders to meet them where they're at and where they'd like to be by identifying major needs and facilitating access for all helped us to rebalance and advance local goals. We addressed the low-hanging fruit in the area that is specific to this context, this corridor, and this community. The original boulevard bisected the community with a very wide 64-foot and hard to cross cut between the neighborhood grid to the south and other destinations and amenities above, presenting significant connectivity issues. We maintain throughput for vehicles with a few adjustments to reduce conflict risk between users and enhance efficiency by dedicating areas for shared vehicles and defined spaces for active transportation. A few of the low-hanging fruits that Adam picked were removing pedestrian impediments on the sidewalk when feedback and observations suggested demand for a mid-block crossing that was included in the alternative, working with the community to identify a bus stop with particularly high boarding and recommending enhanced shelter amenities, and in general, looking to enhance the human scale aesthetic of the streetscape to make it more comfortable for pedestrians and other users. The streetscape proposal aims to support our third area, activating the street. By making the design consistent with the corridor, we help define Westgate City Boulevard as a gateway for the community and are encouraging more activity on the street. We're teeing up Greensboro for future forces and trends that will impact the design and use of the street and continue to grow the area. In the past year, we have seen a lot of activating the street with new places to sit, to eat, to visit, and to play. And while we aren't recommending parklets or streeteries here, the idea of recognizing public right-of-way as a space that shapes so much of our lives is really crucial for complete streets. This is a major corridor to go through, but we also want to make sure that it is a place that is useful for all, whether you're driving, riding, or biking, walking, or rolling. If you take anything away from our presentation today, we encourage you to bring these three themes into your future work and projects. The first is to prioritize community and stakeholder input, be innovative in gathering insight, and make sure all voices are heard. Operating with complete street policies can give a framework for prompting deeper analysis and give examples and ideas to engage your community. Secondly, we want our transportation planning professionals and engineers to be inclusive in planning and design. Prioritize vulnerable road users and invest time and resources into creating safer amenities for greater access. Rebalancing the right-of-way to reflect the needs and goals of the community can find latent demand for active modes like biking and walking. And being supportive of stakeholder goals for better aesthetics, placemaking, and welcoming space can help create a space that the community really values. Finally, complete streets are more than just paint on the road or a seat at a bus stop. It's a real paradigm for recognizing street design as an interconnected part of the community. We literally connect people to places, services, and opportunity, but we're also providing a shared space for mobility. When we prioritize all modes and give people options, we're advancing a more equitable corridor and a more enjoyable street. And the cherry on top of all of this is that it's not mutually exclusive. We are maintaining the efficiency and throughput for the area. You can move thousands and thousands of cars, I believe 25,000 here, and define a welcoming, safe space for your community. We hope that this case study and this presentation provided some context and some inspiration to bring these concepts to streets that may look like this in your community. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we ran a little late, and we welcome any questions.
Great, thank you, Carrie, Adam, and Chris. If you could turn your mic and your camera back on, we'll handle some questions quick. We don't have a lot of time. But Chris, there seems to be a theme amongst the questions here regarding the lighting. First of all, were there existing conduits in the parapet that allowed the installation of the new wiring? And then secondly, once the lighting was installed, who pays the electric bill and maintains the lighting? Is it the municipality or PennDOT?
No, to answer the first part, no, we actually added conduit on the outside of the parapet. We added some little hangers on the outside of the parapet to accommodate the new conduit, and then we actually punched in the backside of the parapet for those lighting fixtures. And yes, the local municipality, Phoenixville Borough, is actually footing the bill for those lights. Obviously, we're using LED lights, so the electric bill is pretty low these days.
Thanks, Chris. And then Carrie and Adam, there's a question here about shrinking the lane widths, the vehicular lane widths, and how does that impact bicycle use?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one we had to grapple with. Speaking with various interest groups, we spoke with a bicycle group. They wanted on-street bicycle lanes. We talked to the community. They said, we're never going to bicycle on that road ever. So it's a balancing act. The side path was a concept, an idea to accommodate the more recreational rider, tying in with Greenway facilities rather, and by reducing the width, those hardcore road cyclists they can share the lanes. But the other benefit we have here is that grid network to the south. Folks can easily traverse this area east to west, and then on our corridor focus on safe north-south crossings.
Great, thanks. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time.